What is up, RPG nerds? Welcome back to the Final Fantasy traditional Final Fantasy ranking video series. We're almost at the end. 2 more videos after this one, but in this video we will be ranking all of the all these games by how good their villains are. So it's going to be whatever I consider to be the main villain for each of these. I might throw in, if any game has like 2 very distinct main villains that are very different, equally important, I might throw 2. I'm looking at these games and I'll probably have 1 or 2 of these games that I will put multiple villains on. But anyway, I will be ranking all the villains of all the traditional Final Fantasy games by how good their villain is. But before we get into that, I want to do a quick self-plug that I keep doing. Sorry if it's getting annoying, but I want people to hear about this. I am making my own RPG, The World is My Playground, Realm of the Relinquished, and I want all of you to like, subscribe, and join the community of RPG Ranked so that you can help me in my pursuit for developing that game, because I am leaving a lot of it up to y'all, because basically I'm trying to create the best traditional RPG that takes everything from all my favorite games, all your favorite games, and combines it into the perfect 2D pixel RPG. It's going to be gargantuan. I've spent like 40 hours just making the first area, because that is how amazing I want this game to be. I've been translating it into French. I've been making my own music. I'm about to buy a DAW so I can actually make the music sound better. And like, I'm going all in. You can see some of the posts already on the channel. This is a big project of mine, and I just am really passionate about it. It's not really even about the money. It's me wanting to make what I consider the best 2D RPG. Of course, there's always going to be people who disagree, and I'm not saying that I'm better than everybody else who's made, but I'm going to start hiring. I'm trying to get all my different artist friends to try to come in and create the art and all this stuff, and I want it to be incredible. And yeah, so if you want to join that, there's already quite a few decisions that have been decided on by the community. We've got the title theme has been decided. I let people decide what type of title theme they wanted, so like the game that plays when you boot up the game, and they decided they wanted a more like Dragon Quest sounding, like heroic one. So that's one thing they've decided on. They have also decided on what type of battle system the game would have. I gave them 2 options, because frankly I don't really like ATB battle systems as much as a lot of people, so I gave them traditional turn-based or CTB and conditional turn-based 1, so it will officially have a battle system, kind of like Final Fantasy X, Blue Dragon, Final Fantasy Dimensions 2, that type of battle system. So I'm really excited about that. So if you want to join the community and give your opinions on what would make the best 2D traditional turn-based RPG, I would love for you to do that. Once it gets a little bit bigger, I'm going to try to really promote this channel, do everything I can to make the best content, try to get my video out there. I'm really busy right now with a lot of stuff, like learning multiple languages, all this stuff. So it's been hard for me to make the absolute best videos of all time. I know a lot of it is just me sitting in front of a slightly bad microphone, ranking things on Tier Maker, but eventually I'm going to invest. Once I have more money, more time, I'm going to invest into making this channel better and try to grow the community and try to pull like a Chained Echoes where we can get one of the best. I just really want to go above and beyond and make one of the greatest games out there. It's always been one of my goals since I was 3 years old. Since I booted up Final Fantasy 1 for the first time, it's always been my dream to make a game that takes all my favorite elements in. So if you want to be part of that community, want to contribute to something, I would love for you to join. And my favorite part about this channel by far is just talking to all of you. Like, I mean, my favorite part is after the videos have come out. There's like some of my favorite people in the comments I love hearing from, like 100 Servings and Chemo. Just shout out to all you guys, and Nez Keys, and so many other people that I talk to on like a daily basis down there. I wish I could shout out every single person, maybe one day. But anyway, enough about that. Let's get into the video, ranking all the villains of the Final Fantasy series. So, yeah, we're going to add, let's see, looking at the Final Fantasy games, again, I randomized them for kind of randomize. Let's randomize them a little bit more just for effect. You know what? Okay. So we will do a couple of these games deserve multiple villains. I'll just add them in as I get to the game because that'll make it less boring from it'll be more integrated into the video if I do it that way. Anyway, basically, Final Fantasy X-2, the main villain is technically Shu Yin, even though a lot of the game LeBlanc kind of feels like the villain. And it's basically just bad Tidus, and LeBlanc is so bad, and Shu Yin is also so bad that both of them, like any of the villains in this game, whether they're a side villain, the main villain, any of them, I hate all of them. Unfortunately, there are things I like about Final Fantasy X-2, but the villains are not them. Like, I don't even care. I don't even care to talk about them anymore. It's basically just ugly Tidus, so Final Fantasy X-2 goes in the F tier. Final Fantasy IV, the After Years, the creator is almost just as bad, but she's not annoying. She's just kind of generic. And I'm a little bit more okay with generic than straight up annoying and distasteful. But it's still E tier for me. Unless, actually, D tier. We'll put it in D tier. I think at least the final boss fight was kind of cool. I mean, the creator had a couple cool moments at the craters, especially during Edge's Tale. I think she had some cool moments. And I thought it was fun that some people legit thought it was like Rydia being evil, so that made me laugh. So, she was also a little cool in Interlude. If anyone actually played Interlude, if you didn't, I don't blame you. But, not the worst. Definitely below average, but not the worst. There will be worse on this list still, so yeah. Alright, Final Fantasy 1, Garland / Chaos is pretty much the definition of a C tier villain, in my opinion. Could be so much worse. I mean, to be fair, he shows up at the beginning and he shows up at the end. However, it does find a way to integrate it so it feels like it was it's not like it feels like from the get-go they were like, okay, Garland's going to be our main villain. It doesn't feel like they thought about the villain as much as everything else in the game, but it still feels like they had an idea of what they wanted to do from the get-go. Like, it doesn't feel like, oh, there needs to be a final boss, so we throw him in. Which is exactly how Final Fantasy 3 feels. I actually am going to talk about these games combined. Because Final Fantasy 1, Chaos feels like he was supposed to be the main villain the whole game. And the fact that the fiends are like very obviously like his goons, which is shown by the fact that they're defending Chaos Shrine, they're defending the lower floors. It feels cohesive. Now, story-wise, is Chaos anything interesting? Not really. Not really. But he's enough, and the fact that the end of the game plot twist is actually kind of good is enough for Chaos to be a memorable, cool villain. And I'm excited. I haven't played Strangers of Paradise yet, but I'm excited to see what that goofy game does with Chaos, with Jack Garland or whatever. I don't know. And those scenes like F Chaos are so funny. I'm excited to play that. But anyway, I'm very interested to see what they do with Chaos and that. I hope they make him even better. But I think Chaos is iconic and epic. And there's a couple of Final Fantasy villains that, because they're iconic and epic, they shoot up higher than they would otherwise. Even though I find them to not be as well-developed story-wise, they're just cool. Like, sometimes a villain can suck, but they're just so well-designed, they're so iconic that they can be good. Now, I said all that and put him in C tier, but you know what? I'm actually going to move it up to B tier. Because for all of its faults, to be fair, it was on an NES originally. There wasn't that much room for dialogue. And they were still able to make me remember Chaos all these years later, to the point that there's basically a whole spin-off game about him now. And I very rarely throw in the argument about, oh, well, it was an NES game. You got to judge it based on its time, because I don't like doing that very much. But for Chaos, I'm just going to say, for how limited Chaos was, he still felt like a decent, good villain instead of some other trash that was on the NES. Like, for example, I mean, FF3, we'll get to in a second. Trash. Awful villain. The Dragon Lord in FF1. Not complete trash, but pretty... in Dragon Quest 1. Pretty trash. Not complete trash, but almost complete trash. The dialogue is a little funny, but to be fair, I don't know if it was funny in the original version. I just played the remade mobile phone version, so I don't know. But Final Fantasy 1, I like chaos. Iconic. Now, Final Fantasy 3 is completely not that. I want to put it in the E tier because there's no build up to the Cloud of Darkness at all the whole game. No one has any... It's not like, oh, you fight the Cloud of Darkness at the beginning of the game and she shows up again. No, it just feels like the development team was like, oh, frick, we need to find a boss. So let's make this awesome final dungeon, big tower, big maze, Forbidden Land of Eureka, and maybe the players will forget that there's no good, that you're just fighting the epitome of darkness as the final boss. And some games, if the game is very metaphorical and all this stuff, and it does a really good job of it, I'm okay if the epitome of darkness ends up being the final boss. I mean, it's a JRPG after all. Sometimes you just gotta have some cringy thing like that, and sometimes it works. In Final Fantasy 3, it didn't even try to work. It was so bad. Like, the Cloud of Darkness just shows up in the middle of nowhere. Zondi shows up in the middle of nowhere, mentioned after like 3 times. None of the fiends really feel connected to the Cloud of Darkness. The Warriors of Darkness are just randomly thrown in there for no reason. Like, it's just goofy. The cohesion there was not good at all. And Zondi and the Cloud of Darkness, I don't see worth ranking separately. They're both equally trash, so we're going to put it in E tier. All right, Final Fantasy X is wild, because I would say they're about... you could technically separate Jecht and Sin, but I don't want to get too crazy. But I'm going to put Jecht/Sin and Seymour as 2 different villains, and talk about them separately. I should have put like a... Next time, I'll put like a... I forgot. Until I started actually making the video, I kind of forgot that there were multiple good villains in some of these games. So I deeply apologize for that. But Sin/Jecht and Seymour are going to be the 2 main villains here. And both of them are pretty good. Not like top tier or anything, I wouldn't say. But they're both good. Seymour... His hair is crazy. He has quite the screen presence. He's just really cool. His boss fights are always awesome. He's just a very interesting villain. He's a little more calm and collected, but also weird and wild. He's just a very intriguing villain. Is he the best villain ever? Not really. But he's pretty good. I think that he kind of steals the show sometimes. I like that you get to play as him, specifically during the Sin Spawn Gui fight. Yeah, he always brings a presence to the game that I always got hyped up when it was a Seymour fight. And the Seymour fights were usually some of the best in the game, outside of like the super bosses and stuff. I thought that they were always the ones I looked the most forward to, and they were usually a little bit harder than the other bosses, and they were usually, pretty memorable and pretty awesome. So, I mean, I don't know. What I'm trying to say, not that I'm counting the bosses as part of it, because I ranked the bosses in a separate video, but like just the fact that the villain was intimidating and cool enough for me to get excited about fighting him as a boss, pretty much, is what I'm trying to say. So, yeah, I really liked Final Fantasy X. Seymour from Final Fantasy X. He's also a little memeable, just like most things from Final Fantasy X, but in a good way. I mean that in a good way. But yeah, I think he's a pretty good, pretty good villain. So I'm going to throw him up in the A tier. Sin, to be fair, I did separate them, but I think I'm going to end up throwing them in the same tier. So maybe that was a little pointless. But I think Sin is more of a, like, not really this, but for the sake of having some weird analogy, kind of like the shark from Jaws. Not really, because they talk about Sin all the time, so it's, I don't know. not as suspenseful. But the point of what I'm trying to say is, as an actual like character, Sin is nothing. It's just a big monster, right? Until it's revealed that over time it's been jacked and all that stuff. But originally, it's just a big monster. But because the game does a great job of like showing the fact that everyone's scared of Sin, that Sin's been this thing that's always been around, and the fact that it's literally named Sin, and as a very obvious allegory to the fact that there needs to be a savior to wipe away the sin, kind of like the atonement of Jesus Christ, or the same thing like the equivalent in other religions, just like the savior. There needs to be a savior to wipe away our sin. I think that was really cool. I think that it built it up in a really good way. It was a really good like allegory for just why this pilgrimage needs to happen. Why there's just a lot of deep-rooted things about Sin that made Sin such an intriguing villain, even though it's just a big beast like that takes the form of many different things. So I'm honestly going to put Sin. I'm going to put it right behind Seymour. They'll probably be separated eventually. Just know that Sin is the one that's ranked lower. But honestly, they'll probably stay together, to be honest. I think that Seymour is a little bit more captivating. But Sin is... I don't think this game would be nearly as good without the combination of the two of them. I think that this game did a really good job of having two distinctly different villains that really brought a lot to the game. I think that if it's just Seymour or just Sin, then it wouldn't be as good. But the two of them together made for a fantastic duo of baddies, you know what I'm saying? And not the girl type, like hot girl type baddies, like bad guy baddies, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, sorry. For anybody who might be my age and hears all the kids saying that, just clarification. That was a really bad joke. I'm sure everybody understood what I was saying. But anyway, sorry for being stupid. Let's go into Final Fantasy II. I love Final Fantasy II, as anybody who's been binging my videos knows that usually I rank Final Fantasy II far higher than anyone else will. Although one thing that most people do agree on is that Emperor Mateus is an epic villain. That's usually... I always see people like, FF2 sucks, except for the Emperor. And I don't think FF2 sucks, but I do think the Emperor is awesome. Not quite S plus tier level, but I'm going to throw the Emperor up in S. He's such a bad A. I mean, like, let's be honest here. He blows up the freaking world in a dreadnought. He kills off multiple, basically, because of him, pretty much so many people you care about die. I mean, he literally kills Rickard himself. Like, and I love that dude, right? Like, he actually is killing people. And everyone is always like, oh, Eris in FF7. Come on. You pretend like that's the most shocking thing ever. It's happened in FF2. It's happened in FF4. It's happened in FF5. Grow up. It's been happening for years. And honestly, Eris's death is one of my least favorites of the ones I just mentioned. Anyway, sorry. That's a whole rant for a different video. I'm sure once I play Rebirth, my opinion will probably change a little bit. The scene will probably be better. Although I don't know if she actually dies in Rebirth. I've heard a bunch of rumors, but I've purposely tried to avoid all that. But I haven't got around to Rebirth yet because I'm busy. But anyway, Final Fantasy II. Yeah, he just kills a bunch of your party members. I mean, not by his hand, but he kills one, and his influences kill basically all your other party members. So, it's crazy. But then, there's an awesome story where the dead characters, again, FF2 is so much worse if you don't play the GBA or PSP version. Like, the Pixel Remaster is trash. I mean, I'm sorry. But if you don't have the Soul of Rebirth, you're not getting the full story. That's my opinion. The Emperor's just crazy. Like, you fight him, you kill him. He comes back in hell, you kill him. He comes back in heaven, you kill him. Like, it's this whole epic thing. You have to kill him so many times, and he's such a bad A. He literally kills Satan and then becomes the new Satan. Like, that is just epic. And he actually does so much damage to the world. It's not like a lot of these other games where they, like, show up. Like in Final Fantasy IV. Zero Mist doesn't kill anything. Like, nothing. Golbez kills Tella. That's about the only sad thing that happens in that game. Whereas Final Fantasy II, Emperor Mateus kills so many people. And to me, that just makes him so much more captivating. Also the fact, again, he kills Satan. Like, how bad is that? Like, I mean, thank you for killing Satan. But also, like, he killed Satan, guys. Like, think about that. That's just crazy. Like, what the frick? Like, the Emperor's awesome. I mean, you don't even get to see him that much in the game. But, again, kind of with Chaos, I don't really need to see a villain as much as long as their presence is looming over the game. And that's something that Sephiroth also does in Final Fantasy VII. But, yeah. So, I think the Emperor's awesome. He also is just very captivating to listen to with this dialogue. So, yeah. Alright, Final Fantasy Tactics is a little more interesting. And what I'm going to do here is I'm not going to actually say any individual villains, as much as I'm just going to say the church. Or what, like, just basically all the villains together. Because there's no one villain that really completely feels whole about this game. Kind of with FF10, but there's so many mini villains that just come. It's basically the corruption is basically the villain itself. And that's what makes Final Fantasy Tactics so interesting. Objectively, I would say this is one of the best on the list. Just because I'm going to put it right below Emperor Mateus. Objectively, I think that it is far better written and all that stuff. But I just love the fact that Emperor Mateus is such a bad A. And he also still somehow looks like a Femi boy. I don't know. It's just funny to me. Also, again, he killed Satan. Let's not forget that part. But anyway, Final Fantasy Tactics is definitely better objectively. But I just love FF2. Whereas I don't like FF Tactics as much as FF2. Please don't crucify me. It's just the truth. But anyway, Final Fantasy Tactics, the writing, the corruption, it's just so well done. And it's not my personal favorite on this list, but from a writing standpoint, it's definitely the best on this list. Just showing the corruption of the world of Final Fantasy Tactics, of Ivalice and all that stuff, it's so unbelievably well done. And the political stuff, the writing, it's so good. Masterpiece. Personal favorite? No. Best? Absolutely. Like, no questions asked. I think that the best villain on this list is all the corruption in Final Fantasy Tactics. But also a slight problem for me is that each individual villain isn't as memorable. So that's why I can't put an S+. Even though I want to, because for objectivity, I would still say it's not my personal favorite. Because no one villain is like this super iconic, like really good villain. A whole group is really good. But there's no... The reason, like, I couldn't rank these individual villains any higher than like a C individually. Maybe Delita. Delita would probably hit a high, probably a low A on his, maybe on his own, which is actually pretty impressive. But he's like by far the best. But like, I just don't think that individually there's a single villain that like really is iconic. But just the game is so well written that I don't even care. Like, it's really impressive. Corruption is the villain. And that's awesome. I really love that. So, yeah. Alright, Final Fantasy Tactics A2. I mean, bro, it's worse than FF10 too. It's so bad. I played this game thinking that this was just some random villain of the week, and then it ended up being the final boss. And the credits rolled. Like, I know there's some build-up to the final villain, but I can't even... Was it a girl? I can't remember. I can't even remember its name. It's so bad. I don't even remember who the final boss is. It's that unbelievably bad. I mean, sorry, like, I don't remember who the main villain of this game is. Again, so bad. I'm sorry, A2. I really like this game, but its writing, its story... I mean, its writing is fine sometimes, but its story and its villain... are so unbelievably bad, I can't even remember their name. And at least I can remember Shu Yin's name from FF10 too, because at least he's funnily bad and pointless and annoying. But I'd rather be annoyed and mock a boss, like a villain, then forget the villain. At least 10-2 stuck in my head to an extent. As much as I was so mad every time they ever appeared on screen because they were so unbelievably stupid, at least I remember them. So honestly, I'm actually going to move 10-2 up to E because it's just so bad. Also, I'm going to throw advanced in here too. I don't remember the final boss of this game either. I remember it being better than A2, but I mean, it's not like I played these games that long ago. I played them around the same time as I played most of these other ones. Like, let's see, A2 I beat. A2 was actually one of the first games on here I beat. But I beat it after 1, 3, 2, 4. I think I beat A2 before I beat 5. No. Yes, I did. But I perfectly remember Golbez from FF4. I perfectly remember 1, 2, and 3. I just don't remember anything. I don't remember who the final boss was. I have an insane memory when it comes to RPGs. I remember the health counts of like every single boss from FF1. Why? I don't know. For some reason, RPGs just always stick in my head. But A2 and Advance, no idea who the final boss of these games were. So for that, they just have to go in the F tier. Like, there's no explanation other than that. They're that bad. I'm sorry, but they are. The final boss of World of Final Fantasy is kind of garbage. It kind of is like, the point of the game is they're kind of going around. I mean, it's like they're trying to find their parents, so it's like they're exploring. So there's not really a true antagonist throughout the game. The antagonist is more of like a word of mouth, like cataclysmic event, which is fine if once you got there, the final boss completely stole the show. Like, let's say He Who Remains from Loki or something. Although, I mean, he's not the best, but at least something like that, where like you get there and you're like, oh, interesting. No, it's just a really corny, like, mid-villain. However, since he's more something and actually is part of the plot, I'm going to put him in low D. I remember what he looks like. I remember that he is a villain, and I remember the things he does at the end of the game. So for that, and the fact that I think he's at least a little funny and corny, but not too annoying like Final Fantasy X-2, but more memorable than Final Fantasy III, I want to put World of Final Fantasy's villain right there. Now, I don't even remember his name, to be fair, but I remember him. I remember what he looks like. World of Final Fantasy, final boss. X9 Bahamut. What am I... Bro, do I not even remember? Oh, Brandilus's true form. Yeah, I do remember this. Brandilus. I definitely remember that name now. I remember all about Brandilus now. Just seeing his name refreshed me. I think he actually does more interesting stuff than the creator does, even though he's so much more limited in screen time than the creator, I feel like. Because when it comes down to it, Brandilus ends up like ruining the main character's life in a way that the creator just doesn't, I don't feel like. You know, I might be able to be convinced by myself later that Brandilus deserves a C. Actually, I do think Brandilus deserves a C. Just because in the amount of screen time he has, not quite as good as like FF1, I feel like even, but in the screen time he has, he's able to be memorable. And to be fair, I was kind of trying to speedrun World of Final Fantasy's final boss, because I was trying to quickly beat it because there was a game that I was trying to play. So I blame myself for forgetting Brandilus's name, but I actually think he was pretty cool. I think that he was able to steal the show a lot more than the creator was, and in the small amount of time he was there, he was not that bad of a villain. So, yeah. All right. Final Fantasy Dimensions. It kind of tries to pull a Final Fantasy 1 like twist. And to be fair, it didn't do it that badly. Although, yeah, I'm going to put Final Fantasy Dimensions right here. I think the twist was kind of cool, but the character itself was never interesting enough that the twist really came together for me. And it also was too far removed. Like, it was a party member from the beginning of the game that ends up, that you thought died, and ends up like being a twist. And I don't know. It felt like it was too far removed from the beginning of the game. And you might be like, well, Brighton, you said the same about FF1, and you said it was fine. But the thing that makes it different for me is that, like, Garland was such a... I mean, it was like the first boss. Like, he was already established as a villain. And Final Fantasy 1 is a way shorter game than Dimensions. So, like, part of me almost forgot about that character. Like, the only reason I didn't forget about the character is I was ranking the characters as I went along, so that I did force myself to remember them. And otherwise, I mean, Elgo, the guy that ends up becoming like the final boss or whatever, is just not really even relevant by the end of the game. Like, I just never thought about him anymore, except for the fact that I was purposely trying to remember him to make a ranking that I still haven't made yet for some dumb reason. But, or maybe I did make it. I can't remember. I'll have to look. I was going to rank the characters other than the ones that are actually in your party, like the side characters. But anyway, I'll probably just include them as a ranking of all the characters in the series, and that's enough for them. I don't think anyone is going to watch a FF Dimensions character ranking video. Although, if you do want that, let me know down below. I will make it if at least one person reaches out to me and is like, hey, I'd like to see that video. If one person wants it, that's enough for me. But if I'm the only one who wants it, I think that's kind of a stupid video to make, because, frankly, I don't think anyone would click on that, nor is it really... But you know what? I do kind of like to max out my stuff, so I'll probably still make it. But anyway, what I'm trying to say here is Elgo just wasn't relevant by the time. And again, FF1 is like for like 20 hours ish. FF Dimensions is closer to like 50. And Elgo at that point, he's been dead this whole time to you. And I don't know. I just felt... And also, the FF1 twist also included a little bit more. It was concise and to the point, but it also included the time loop in there. And also, it was quite obvious after Chaos was revealed Garland to be the big bad. It all made sense why the fiends were there and all this stuff. Whereas Elgo's reveal just kind of felt weird and unearned. Whereas Chaos, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That checks out. The guy who's stealing the princess at the beginning of the game is the one who's been, you know, controlling all the fiends this whole time. And he has a really cool design, whereas Elgo didn't really. So, like, they're pretty similar in a lot of ways, but, yeah. I don't know. All right. Final Fantasy IV, just to separate it a little bit, I am going to add one more, just because I want to talk about two different villains from this game. Okay. Just saying right away, Zeromus is one of the worst, most awful villains ever. So stupid. But I'm going to put it... Okay, it's not that bad, actually. I'm going to put it in D. And the reason that I'm putting it in D is because I was so happy that Golbez actually wasn't really the bad guy. Because this whole time, I mean, it's revealed that he's Cecil's brother, and you see Kain controlled. And it makes sense from all of what you see with Golbez, especially after you replay the game. It makes sense that he's controlled. And I like that it's just like, to me, this kind of works because I like that Golbez isn't evil. It makes me happy because he's such a cool guy, like an epic guy, and that the fact that he's playable in the after years and all that stuff, it just makes me happy that Golbez wasn't actually a bad guy. Is it kind of a cop-out? Yeah, because then you realize, oh, the main villain wasn't really a villain. But to me, it kind of worked for Final Fantasy IV. So that's why he's going above at least the Cloud of Darkness, because it kind of felt like there was a point in there. Like, that sometimes everything isn't what it seems. And I thought that happened with Kain, and then they're still getting... And then they realized, oh, Golbez was never bad this whole time, too. So, like, I thought it was kind of cool. So, Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. But other than that, Zero Miss is just a garbage villain. I mean, the only reason he's cool is because Golbez is cool, and I wanted him to become a good guy and be redeemed. And there's definitely a theme of redemption in Final Fantasy IV with Cecil, with Kain, with Golbez. And it's like Cecil's brother can also be redeemed just like Cecil was. So I thought that was awesome. I thought that part was cool. But it's mostly because Golbez was cool that I don't absolutely hate Zero Miss, if that makes sense. Now, Golbez himself, I'm going to put up in the A tier. I think Golbez, his music, every time he's on screen, he steals the show. I think that, his music is intimidating. I do wish you got to fight him more than, once? Twice if you count with the Tella duel. I think that it would have been a little bit better if he was awesome, but I still would have wished to see him a little more. I think that the game would have been a little more effective if he was still a little bit more. Actually, he was present a good deal. I wish he was a little bit more present later in the game instead of, if that makes sense. Although, to be fair, no, he was still present quite a good bit. No, yeah, anyway, I really liked Golbez. So the more I saw him, the more happy I was. But I thought he was a really good villain. He really did show up a lot throughout the game. His music, his armor, he was really iconic. I thought he was really cool. And the fact he kills the main character, again, that just adds so much more reason to hate him. Whereas a lot of these villains don't really even do anything that awful. I mean, obviously they do awful things, but they don't win as much, you know. The ones that don't actually kill any of your main characters, it's hard to really, feel how evil they are, if that makes sense. Or at least kill somebody. And Golbez, when he kills Tella, it all feels a little more real. Now, he doesn't really do that much damage to the world itself. But he just really, he steals the show. And that's part of what makes a good villain. Is he the most villainous? No. And the reason he's not higher is because he's not the actual best villain, you know. But he's still really good. So, yeah. All right. Way better than Zero Miss, that's for sure. I could also throw Kain here as a villain, but I think that would be excessive. And I don't know where I would rank him. That's a little weird. I don't think that's relevant enough to do that, so yeah. All right, X-Death. Okay, looking at this, I'm going to move Sin, so this is Sin, down to B. Otherwise, it's just going to get a little too crammed up in the A tier. X-Death is actually one of my favorite Final Fantasy villains. Super underrated. Unbelievably underrated X-Death. I'm going to throw X-Death right at the top so far. He's goofy as heck. He steals the show, yet he also is super intimidating. The same guy who turns into a splinter is also able to stay that goofy, yet still be intimidating. Because they found a way to make him funny, but also to make him intimidating. And he honestly does some of the most damage of any Final Fantasy villain. Probably even more than the Emperor. But just people seem to forget that. Because, he destroyed the worlds with the Dimensional Rift and merged them together, in the process destroying so many places. And that's bad A as frick. He literally uses an interdimensional rift to, destroy worlds. And he actually does it. Everyone talks about how FF6, Kefka succeeds, but nobody talks about X-Death very much succeeded at his plan in FF5. Even the Emperor in FF2, who kind of succeeded so much, still didn't succeed nearly as much as X-Death did, I think, in my opinion. Because there's only so much damage from a airship can do. Damage with an interdimensional rift is wild. Bro just, lifted up parts. I mean, I don't know why I didn't do it more, to be fair. So that was a little bit of a plot hole, I guess. But dude was just like ripping apart the world with dimensional powers. I mean, that's epic. And this is the same guy who's just splintering your finger at one point. But he's so unbelievably goofy and bad at the same time. And no, not even close. Like, Sephiroth and Eris moment isn't even 1,000th of as good as Galuf and Exdeath. No one will ever convince me. I couldn't care less. I mean, I really like Eris as a character, so her dying made me sad. But the actual scene of Sephiroth killing Eris is not even comparable by any means, in my opinion, to Galuf's death. I could watch Eris' death 2,000 times and not be as sad as Galuf's death once, because that's how incredible that scene was. Exdeath steals the show in this game. So good. I don't know where. I think the big reason why Exdeath isn't as popular as a lot of these villains is because the game wasn't localized until so many years later, and so many Final Fantasy fans still haven't played Final Fantasy V. I mean, maybe there can be other reasons. I mean, he is goofy. If you can't get past the fact he's goofy, sure. Okay, that's fine. But Exdeath has the intimidating presence of Golbez. He is the most funny of any of these characters, except maybe Seymour if you get some dumb memes in there. Or maybe Necron when he quotes Yoda, but we'll get to that. He's the funniest, one of the most intimidating, one of the most powerful, one of the most, I mean, like, probably my favorite scene outside of a final cutscene in Final Fantasy is Galuf's death scene. So powerful. I've cried multiple times just talking about it, which is embarrassing, but it's true. I've done that. If you go watch my Final Fantasy V dungeon ranking, I start tearing up when I start talking about Galuf dying. It's so much. I mean, I still, other than the fact that Final Fantasy VII made waves, I just don't understand how Eris' death may be more shocking, because I see there's a bit more of a lead up, because Eris' death is out of nowhere. I mean, it's pretty out of nowhere. I didn't expect it, whereas Five's I kind of expected it. But the actual scene is so good. And I mean, Exdeath just steals the show. His music, his castle. I mean, he's one of the most goofy, but he really does steal the show. And anyone who says otherwise, I still wonder, like, why don't you think Exdeath is cool? I mean, if you don't think he's cool because he's goofy, sure. But some of the best villains also make you laugh. Because, I don't know. I mean, if you don't like, I don't know. If you want a super serious villain, completely 100% serious, I'm okay with that. I get why you wouldn't like Exdeath. But I think Exdeath is amazing. So, yeah. But not quite as amazing as Kefka. Not quite as amazing as Kefka. Kefka's just insane, dude. Dude is so memorable. Like, bro he's like the Joker. I mean, he's really a lot like the Joker. But with, like, insane magic that can, like, literally decimate the whole world. And, I mean, part of why Final Fantasy VI's scene with the World of Ruin is so much better than the scene in FF5 is because it plays it more seriously, and it just really shows the damage of it, whereas Final Fantasy V doesn't do it as well, where it doesn't really feel as crazy. And a lot of people don't talk about the merge worlds much because it didn't do as good of a job, like, showing the fact that, oh frick, he just destroyed the world. I feel like a lot of people forget that even happened in FF5 because it's not done as well. But in FF6, it really is done well. And even that, throughout the game, he's just built up as this maniac. Like, what he does to Doma made me tear up. It's wild. He just poisons the water and kills a bunch of people because he thought it would be funny. It's insane. Kefka's insane. He's such a crazy, weird villain, and he's a lot like the Joker, and that's part of why he's so interesting to watch. And in a lot of ways, he's just as goofy as Exdeath, but it plays it seriously, where somehow it's just like the Joker from, like, The Dark Knight, where you're like, oh my gosh, this guy's wacky, and he seems so completely removed from, like, the somber style of the game and stuff, yet it works so unbelievably well. So I'm totally throwing Kefka up on the top for now. I think I might have one that beats Kefka, but probably not. No, I don't think anything beats Kefka. So Kefka's on top, but we still got a couple iconic villains to talk about. All right, Final Fantasy Dimensions 2 has 3 main villains, kind of, but 2 of them aren't really worth talking about, to be fair. The actual final boss and the Bahamut aren't really worth talking about, in my opinion. I'd probably put both of them in D. However, one of the most underrated villains of the entire series is in Final Fantasy Dimensions 2. That is my man, Sorg the Death Lord. Oh yeah, dude. The Death Lord goes right up to the S tier, and I'm not apologizing or anything. The Death Lord is so epic. He gets this awesome redemption story. He gets this awesome everything. The plot twists are wild. I mean, most people haven't played FF Dimensions 2, but one of the best parts about this game is the Death Lord. So epic. I mean, after I played the game, I was like, dang, the freaking Death Lord. Could the writing have been better? Could the twists have been executed better? Sure. But the freaking Death Lord, I mean, so epic. And what type of a name is that? The Death Lord. That's literally his freaking name. But it's epic. To be fair, it's kind of just as bad in Final Fantasy XI and pretty much every single Dragon Quest game. But, like, the Death Lord, so underrated as a villain. Any day of the week, I'll easily say he's S tier. The biggest problem with the Death Lord is that he doesn't really... I don't know. He's not really the one who ends up destroying a bunch of stuff. The bad villains, the lame ones, are the ones who actually do the most damage. But the Death Lord is just so captivating. And if you really pay attention to the lore, you watch all the cutscenes, you watch all the skits, you see really how much the Death Lord, the Dark Elf, the Death Lord has done. He's awesome. I don't think he's quite Tactics level, and I don't think he's quite Emperor level, because Emperor just... his impact is felt so much throughout the game. It's unbelievable. But, like, the Death Lord is iconic as heck. And if you've played Final Fantasy Dimensions 2, let me know. I want to know your opinion on the Death Lord, because he has, like, 4 different insane plot twists. Easily one of the best Final Fantasy characters. And the sole reason I'm not ranking him higher is because he really didn't do that much, tangible damage to the world. Compared to, like... Because the whole thing is like you're trying to time travel to stop the world from being destroyed by like Bahamut or whatever. And the Death Lord is kind of just like on the side there, like pulling the strings. Kind of. It's kind of weird. But the Death Lord, such a great villain. He kind of starts as like a side villain too, once you start getting Journey in your party. But anyway, super good. Definitely put him in the S tier. No doubt about it. Definitely S tier. Now, it's going to be wild that I like Final Fantasy Dimensions 2 better than Sephiroth, but I feel like Sephiroth is only so good because the media has forced him to be so good. Because, frankly, you play Final Fantasy VII the OG. Like, I've played Final Fantasy VII the OG multiple times, and I've never found Sephiroth to be very interesting. He's cool. His design is iconic. He kind of looms in the background, kind of like Chaos. And I will say he's definitely better than Chaos, obviously. But, like, he just doesn't do that much throughout the game. I mean, you get, like, cutscenes, and basically he kills Eris and he summons Meteor. And he loses. And a villain that doesn't really win, he doesn't really win that much in the game. I'm going to add Shinra as well. But he doesn't really win that much. And he looks cool, but I feel like so much of why Sephiroth is awesome is because One Winged Angel is awesome, because Nobuo Uematsu is awesome, and because everyone hypes him up as this epic character. Now, I will say he's definitely better if you play Remake and all this stuff and you really, like, get into Sephiroth. He's menacing, I will admit. He's a cool-looking villain. He works. but he's not nearly as interesting to me as he is to everyone else. I just don't get it. I don't get it, other than the fact he looks cool. He looks hot to women who have a crush on femi boys. And he has a cool sword. I mean, his sword is bad A. But even his scene with killing Eris is done so poorly compared to Exdeath and Gala for me. Like, I get the hype around Sephiroth. I get that a lot of people think he's a cool, menacing thing in the background. And to be fair, he is mysterious. I like some of his plot elements. But I think even Sin does the whole looming in the background better than Sephiroth. To the point where, I mean, I'm going to move Sin back up to A tier and put Sephiroth right here. On the same tier as Chaos. I really don't think, other than imagery, I don't think Sephiroth is honestly all that much better than Chaos. Because he really is kind of that. I mean, he is shown a few times throughout the game, I will admit. But his damage is shown. I mean, to be fair, okay. I mean, I think a big part of why I just don't like him that much is because everyone worships this guy like he's the greatest villain of all time, when I'd still say he's just a little bit above average. I mean, he is cool. He looms in the background, like he stabs that snake through with a sword. I will admit that's cool. He is mysterious. He has an interesting past. But, I mean, the looming presence of Sin just was so much, like the allegorical stuff of Sin was way more interesting to me. And I just, maybe I would have him in A tier if everyone didn't overhype him so much. But I just don't really see what everyone sees in Sephiroth. I see him as a serviceable villain that does what he needs to do to make the game have a final boss. But I just don't really see him as much more. To me, he's just a slightly better version of Chaos, honestly. And part of why Sin ends up being just better Sephiroth, in my opinion, is because the damage is a lot more feasible. I mean, what does Sephiroth do? He kills Eris, he summons Meteor, which fails, and then he kills a couple other people and a snake. But again, in one scene, Exdeath stole the show more than Sephiroth does the whole game for me. Galuf versus Exdeath. That's the guy who turns into a splinter in your finger. More menacing than anything FF7 ever throws at me with Sephiroth. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, in Remake, he's a lot worse because he's actually showing up. He's coming in too fast. Like, he's not that looming presence in the background anymore. And honestly, I don't like Sephiroth any better in Remake, to be honest. Again, he's cool. He has a great design. Whoever designed him, genius. But as a villain, he does almost nothing for me. That isn't, I mean, he's the definition of a B tier villain for me. He never really reaches above that. I don't really get that. Now, there is a Final Fantasy VII villain I think is incredible, and that's Shinra. I would have far preferred Shinra to be the main villain of this game. I couldn't care less about Sephiroth. To me, he's a cool final boss that Nobuo could have good music with. I don't care about Meteor. I don't care about Sephiroth that much. But what I did care about is a band of rebels trying to save their frickin' town from a corrupt government company. That was the shiz. That was epic. That's what I wanted from Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy VII was set to instantly become my favorite Final Fantasy game. With the setup of Midgar, with Shinra and all that stuff. And as soon as you exit Midgar, everything I loved about Final Fantasy VII goes out the window. Because it focuses on Sephiroth. It focuses on a bunch of crap I don't care about. Now, a lot of people have the opposite opinion. They just don't really like the Midgar portion, and they're just waiting to get out of Midgar. Which is fine. I mean, I'm okay. You like the dude with a big sword with an interesting past. That's fine. I mean, sure. I wish I liked him. You think I'm over here being like, oh yeah, I like hating Sephiroth. He's so boring. I mean, he's not that boring. I put him in B tier. B for boring. But, you know, Shinra just did it so much better for me. Shinra's relatable Because a lot of times, I don't like the government, regardless of who's in the presidential seat. There's just no such thing as a perfect government. There's no such thing as perfect big businesses. And Shinra is so intriguing for that. And you just see the effects of Shinra so much in the world of Final Fantasy VII. You look through Midgar, you see how they've wrecked the world. And that is why I loved FF7 Remake. Because the whole game is set in Midgar. And we just get to see all of what Shinra's doing wrong. And that's why Final Fantasy VII Remake is a far, like, I would rather, like, Final Fantasy VII Remake to me is infinitely better than the original. Not really. I mean, that's not true. But, like, way better than the original because it gave me the story I wanted from FF7. I would have preferred 7 Remake. It spends so much time in Midgar and feels like a complete game. I would have preferred if the original Final Fantasy VII just spent more time in Midgar and had Shinra building be the final dungeon. Honestly, would have preferred it. Because I don't care about everything else that happens in that game. Like, after I exit Midgar, what I wanted from the game is complete. You took down Shinra. I just don't really care about everything else. And for that, Shinra's going right up in the S+ tier. Right here. I think Shinra, fantastic villain. Sephiroth kind of bored me a little bit. And that's just my opinion. Sephiroth is too dumb for me. Because not dumb in the fact that, like, X-Death dumb, like goofy. Just straight up, he doesn't destroy anything. He fails, and all he kills is a little girl that's my age or younger. No, I think she's like a year older than me. Who's praying. That's the best, most menacing thing he does, is he kills a girl who's praying. Oh, and he kills a snake. Guess who's also killed a snake? Me. It's not that impressive. Okay, maybe not. It wasn't that big. But if I had a freaking sword like Sephiroth, I could probably kill a big snake too. It's not that impressive, dude. Also, I can commit arson any day of the week. It's not that hard. You get a freaking fire, you get some gasoline, and you light something on fire. It's not that impressive, Sephiroth. I know that's just my opinion. If you love Sephiroth, 100% power to you. I'm glad you love Sephiroth. He is really epic looking, I will admit. I like playing as him in Super Smash Bros. He's one of my mains. Because, I mean, he's from Final Fantasy. Of course, I play him over freaking Olimar. But, like, he just doesn't do anything for me. Much. I mean, he does a little bit more for me than Chaos. And actually, to the point where I'm going to throw in one of my infamous big gaps in here. Huge gap. Because all these villains do so much more for me than Sephiroth and Chaos do and all these other villains. These are the villains I'm invested in. Not these. Just Sephiroth does almost nothing for me. Because again, it doesn't feel like he does anything. He looms in the background, but he never really destroys anything. I mean, the meteor does crash at the end. But it doesn't do that much damage. I mean, meteors crash on Earth all the time. They slowed down the meteor and it crashed. So what? It's a freaking meteor. It's a meteor. Meteors hit Earth all the time. No one's dead. I mean, it probably killed a couple people. But, like, it's so unbelievably uninteresting to me. Sephiroth. And again, Shinra hooked me so much to the fact I might even want to put him on top. But I'm probably having some bias from Final Fantasy VII Remake. So I'm going to put Final Fantasy, Shinra, just keep it where it is. Second place. Again, Shinra was so interesting to me. Just some guys with batons. Some evil business dudes. In suits. Like, that is what I wanted from Final Fantasy VII. I was so excited that we were getting a more grounded, cool game that makes sense. And then we get this idiot with a sword. I mean, he's not an idiot, but, like, it's Shinra so much better than Sephiroth. And Sephiroth is a cool image. But there's never a single second of the game that Sephiroth was even close to as interesting as Shinra was. And that's why my favorite parts of the game were up until you exit Midgar and when you go back to Midgar. Those were probably the 2 points in FF7 that I would say I like nearly as much as anyone else who plays that game. I still think FF7 is like an A- game because there's a lot of good stuff about it. But I just have a lot of issues with FF7, and almost all of it has to do with the fact that after I left Midgar, I just didn't care anymore. I just didn't care because it just felt like everything that was so good about the game just disappeared. After the Shinra building, I stopped caring. There were a couple scenes in there after that I really liked. Sid and his rocket. Some of the backstory with Cloud and all that stuff. It's fine. That's good. And Aerith's death was pretty shocking. I will admit it was an okay, above average death scene. It could have been a whole lot worse. I will give it that. I liked the whole Temple of the Ancients. But there was so much stuff that I just couldn't care less about in Final Fantasy VII, and that's mostly because Sephiroth was the villain. In FF1, I was like, oh yeah, let's go kill the fiends and get the crystals. At least I was like that. I will still give Sephiroth the edge over Chaos, because if I didn't, I would feel like an idiot. But at least in FF1, I was interested to see who the big bad was, and I was trying to kill all the 4 fiends. In FF7, I didn't care. After I beat Sephiroth, I was like, finally, I can be done with this game. That's how I felt after beating Sephiroth. How I felt after beating Shinra was like, I wish I could do this in the real world. I wish I could make a difference like this in the real world. There we go. That was a huge rant, but yeah. All right, Final Fantasy VIII. Edea. I think Edea is a way better villain than Sephiroth. Again, I think Edea's design is even better than Sephiroth, honestly. I'm sorry, but Black Dude with... sorry, not Black Dude. Sephiroth's design is simple and cool. But in the end, he's a dude with black clothes and a big sword. I'm pretty sure his clothes are black. I don't even remember. I've played FF7 multiple times. I played Remake. I played Smash Bros. I can't even remember what color his clothes are, because I literally don't care about him that much. But anyway, Edea looks really cool. And the reason I like Edea so much better than Sephiroth, I feel like they're two of the most similar villains here, is because Edea, first of all, she ends up being mind controlled by Ultimecia. And she is actually... And then she ends up not being, and then gets re-mind controlled, right? What I really like about Edea is that she's a good guy, and that she's being controlled and all this stuff, but she's someone... I actually am a defender of the orphanage scene. It is kind of stupid, but the reason I like it... Now, I really like that scene. I think that the GFs being the explanation was stupid. I think the idea of the scene was fantastic. I think the execution was wrong. But the orphanage scene ties everybody together with the villain in a way that most FF games didn't really do. Where this is the woman that raised you, and you have to go kill her because she is going to cause the end of the world. And to me, that instantly just made me care so much about destroying Edea, even though I didn't want to, and it just made her such an interesting villain for me. Final Fantasy VII, again, Sephiroth is tied to Cloud and stuff. And he's tied to a couple of the others, right? But he's not so... Edea's just so intrinsically tied with every one of the characters in the game. And as soon as you figure out that information, to me at least, it recontextualized the events of the whole game. I'm like, oh frick, this is our mom. This is the mom of all the characters. The one who took them in when they had nothing. I don't think people realize how big of a deal it is to have one woman taking care of that many kids alone at an orphanage. Actually, I think Sid might have been there temporarily. But that is a woman who's taking care of all these kids. And that, like, people who take in orphans, I mean, they are some of the people I respect the most in this world. Because those are kids who are abandoned by their parents. And most of the time, people who abandon their kids are kind of idiots. Now, there are obviously exceptions, like if a mom was raped and she gives birth to a kid because she doesn't want to abort it, and she gives it up for adoption. That is totally fine. Like, that's fine. But a lot of times, it's drunk idiots who waste their lives, who go and just throw away their kids, throw them to the wayside. And this woman, the main bad guy, is the one who raised all these kids. Now, obviously, the explanation with the GFs and all that crap was garbage. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Because then why would you be using GFs this whole time if you knew that, Irvine? You're forgetting about this woman. Like, family first, bro. But I can put that aside because the rest of the scene really worked for me. I think it really worked. I think it did a good job of, I mean, I was laughing at it, but to be fair, FF8 never really takes itself completely seriously either. I mean, if you pay attention throughout the game, it's kind of satirical in a way. And I think that Edea is an awesome villain because she is so tied to each of the characters. No matter what character, even the side characters, like Safer and Squall's sister and Sid and all these different characters. Even though a lot of the characters of FF8, the playable characters, are kind of garbage, it's definitely not Edea who's garbage. Squall's amazing, Edea's amazing, Laguna's amazing, Safer's amazing. Sure, there's only 4 really good characters in this game. But Edea caring for the kids, Edea herself made me care more about, like, Irvine and all the boring Quistis, Selphie, Renoa, right? I think they did such a good job at Edea. I cared about, because this is trying to, like, again, I really respect women, like single women, like single moms, and I really respect people who take in orphans. This is the final boss of an RPG being controlled by an evil witch from like another planet or whatever. I mean, that part's kind of goofy. But when you really look at it, it's your mom that you have to go kill. That's really what's happening here. You might have to kill your mom. Like, imagine that in real life. You have to kill your mom to save the world. Did the game do the best job of actually playing that up? Not really. Of course it didn't. FF8 has a lot of issues. Even taking that aside, take away the fact that twist exists. She kills your main character. She kills Squall in the first act. Don't forget that. He's dead. I mean, that's how it plays it off. Of course he wasn't going to die. But she does stuff. That is equal. In the first act of the game, she's already done equal to what Sephiroth has done this whole time. Like, and she kills him with an icicle, which was super epic. I mean, I'm just saying, that was kind of epic. She like no-scoped him with an icicle. And to me, Edea just took so much more of the screen. I was captivated by Edea in the way that a lot of people are probably captivated by Sephiroth. And I played these games couple years apart. And to me, FF8 was the superior game because I cared. I cared a lot about destroying this lady who pretty much almost killed my main character. Again, Squall is a really relatable dude. I mean, I don't relate to Squall, but my brother growing up acted just like Squall. And he still relates to him. He's a bit more outgoing and stuff now. But so basically, this lady kills a guy who's pretty much like my brother. So I really want her to die because she basically kills the main character. So instantly she's on my threat list. And it really even makes me more mad because Irvine misses a dang shot or whatever. Well, I think it was like magic or something that made it miss. I can't remember specifically. But this whole time, I just want Edia dead, right? Okay. And then I figure out this lady I've hated the whole game is actually kind of good. And then she joins my party and she's an absolute bad A, and I wish she stayed in the party. But no, I don't really wish she stayed in the party, or else she wouldn't be the final boss. But like, part of me wishes she stayed in the party because she's epic. Maybe like old Temeshio was like her twin or something. No, we don't need more plot twists in FF8, honestly. But this lady who, again, almost kills a main character that is so much like a lot of my friends, who's, I mean, let's take that out. Let's take out my personal bias for the fact my brother's like Squall. She almost kills the main character. Again, that is so much more than Sephiroth does. For me. And it's not like Squall was being completely defenseless either. I mean, she almost took out Squall when he's like actually fighting her, right? To me, that's a lot more captivating than stabbing someone in the back with the sword when they're helpless praying, right? And again, when it finds out she's good, I was pretty shocked. And then she turns bad again. And then at that point, it's revealed that she's your mom. Like your main character's mom. Your mom almost killed you because she was controlled. I think that Edia is awesome. Now, is the actual game around it do the best job of making Edia be like this amazing character? No, but I don't think Sephiroth was all that either. But to me, again, because of the, like, she could have been a lot better. Because the game did have its flaws. But I think that it's established enough to make me hate her, then like her, then hate her, and back and forth. It was like this game of, is Edia going to be good? Is she going to be bad? Is it like... And she was just super cool to me. Edia is one of my favorites. Honestly. Completely honest. I like her way better than Sephiroth. And it's not even close. Again, there's a huge gap there. Does that look right? I'm going to move her down a little bit. I want to move her here. Because I think the game didn't do as good of a job as it should have. Because she's a dang... I think the same with FF2. Where the implications that a lot of people don't think about are why they're such an insanely good villain, in my opinion. Where your mom almost killed you. You're almost killing your mom. Like, there's just a bunch of these things that nobody really talks about surrounding FF2 and FF8. Where these villains are so incredibly interesting to me. And both the games could have done so much better. Whereas I think Kefka, Shinra, and X-Death were just pretty much perfectly executed the way they should have been. X-Death, I guess they probably should have done a better job of showing all how the merged world came to be, and like kind of like the World of Ruin in FF6. But other than that, the ones in S Plus are perfectly like great villains. Whereas in S, I really, really, really like them, but I think they still have issues with like tactics. No one character is really like a main villain, to the point where I can't really pinpoint, like, I like the corruption thing, but I wish that there was still a main a bit more of a main center focus on one person, because it's, well, not even necessarily. I just think that it's hard to rank a group of people on a list like this, because no individual character alone can get, I don't know if that makes any sense. Dimensions 2, as much as I love the Death Lord, he just didn't do as much as the more, like, the lame final boss characters are the ones who did most of the damage, whereas the actual cool character didn't do a lot of damage. So that's my issue with that. FF2, my biggest issue mostly comes with the fact that it's originally for the NES and there just wasn't as much dialogue. And FF8 is that it didn't capitalize on the coolest ideas of Edea as much as it could have. I still think it did a really good job, though. Now we have Kuja. Everything I like about Kuja is mostly because I like his sort of contrast with Zidane, where Kuja is basically the bad version of Zidane. He had the ability to be good, but he mostly chose bad. And I think that I don't think Kuja is as memorable as Sephiroth or a lot of these characters. I've played through FF9 twice, and I don't really remember much about Kuja, other than the fact he looks super homosexual in when he's trans Kuja, which is totally fine. It just makes me laugh how, like, gay he looks. Totally fine that he looks gay. I'm just saying it makes me laugh that I just don't think that was what they were going for, but he just looks super gay, which is 100% okay, but it's just funny. I don't know what, if they were trying to make him look gay, they did a really good job. He just looked like it was trying to make trans Kuja look super bad, but instead he looked like a, I don't know, like a gay person doing cosplay in the best way possible. But, like, anyway, that makes me laugh about Kuja. That's the most memorable thing for me about him. But I think the best thing, which Sephiroth also did this as well, I just kind of like a good, what's it called, foil character for the main character, where I think Sephiroth did this to a far lesser extent, though, but a little bit, where Kuja is a great foil for Zidane. Where Kuja basically just shows how good Zidane is, but frankly, I still don't think Kuja's that great of a character. I think Kuja's best moment was the fact that in the end cutscene, Zidane goes and tries to save him and redeem him. I think that's everything that I like about Kuja goes back to the fact that I like Zidane. And I don't think he commands as much of a presence even as Sephiroth. So I'm going to put Kuja right here. I think he's fine, but I don't think he's really all that. I think he's a good juxtaposition for Zidane in a lot of good ways, but I still don't think he even has what Sephiroth has for a lot of things. I mean, again, one thing I don't like, I like the villains that feel like they're actually threatening, where Kuja doesn't really feel that threatening. I don't even remember what his goals were. I don't remember what he was trying to do. I remember that for Sephiroth. Now, a lot of that's because everyone shoves it in my face and talks about Sephiroth 24/7. Every time I watch a video about Final Fantasy, everyone's praising Sephiroth like he's the fourth member of the Godhead. But, like, I just don't think that Kuja really does that much for me, and definitely doesn't do as much for me as Sephiroth. So, might be controversial. As much as I love FF7 and FF9, I thought their villains were really weak for me. I mean, not really weak, but just slightly above average. Whereas some of the villains that a lot of people don't really think about that much, Edea and X-Death, are easily some of my favorites in the series. So, I admit I'm kind of crazy. I have different opinions on this. But, hey, at least we can all agree that Kefka is one of the best, right? And I'm pretty sure all you Sephiroth fans are at least happy that I put Shinra up there. Hopefully we can agree that Shinra's cool. Yeah. So, thank you all for watching this video. Sorry if I dissed on Sephiroth too much. I really think he's a decent villain. I don't think he's as... I was being really dramatic to try to get my point across. I still think he's fine. Same with Kuja. I don't have as much to say about Kuja, though. Sorry I really propped up Edia and really tore apart Sephiroth. Not trying to start a FF7 versus FF8 war here. I already did that once. I don't need to do that again. So, anyway, I mean, but in the end, a big part of why I don't like FF7 that much is Sephiroth, and a big part of why I like FF8 so much is Edia. So that's how I roll. That's really just the truth. And a lot of people think when I'm telling, there's so many people in my comments who are like, "There's no way you actually like playing about FF8 better than FF7." I really do. This is 100% my opinion. I'm not trying to spread propaganda. What's the point? The only point of me saying that FF8 is better than 7 is because a bunch of people are going to go hate me in the comments for having a different opinion. Do you think I want that? Do you think I want people to yell at me in all caps? Because that doesn't feel good, honestly. There's a lot of times I've deleted comments because they had so many F words in them that I don't want, if a little kid clicks on this video, to have to see all that. Because I hate swearing and I don't want to see that in my comment section. Now, if you drop a "it's cool as F" once or twice around there, and you're a nice person and you drop a swear word, I couldn't care less. I mean, that's fine. When people are cussing me out for having an opinion, that's really childish, and grow up. Get out of your mother's basement and go do something with your life. But anyway, this is actually my opinion. I'm not spreading propaganda. Many people have accused me of that, which doesn't make any sense, because the only person that's being hurt by me having a contrarian opinion is myself. And there's probably somewhere someone's going to agree with me, and I'm going to have a great chat in the comments with you. So if you agree with me, let me know down below. But thank you all for watching this video. Have a fantastic day. Peace out, RPG fans. Again, go to the community tab and check out some of that stuff. I would love for you to help make this game with me. So anyway, thank you all again. Have a fantastic day. I'll see you in the next video. Peace out, RPG fans.